Rejection hits hard because it touches something deep in almost everyone. It is not always just about losing a person, an opportunity, a friendship, a job, or a place you hope to belong. Sometimes rejection feels painful because it awakens an old fear that maybe you are not enough. Maybe you were not chosen because you lack something. Maybe you were not wanted because there is something wrong with you. That is why so many people do not just experience rejection. They absorb it. They let it settle into their identity. They begin to speak differently, carry themselves differently, and doubt themselves in ways that go far beyond the actual event. But Stoicism teaches a truth that can save you from a lot of unnecessary suffering. Rejection is an event. It is not your identity. It is something that happened, not a final statement about your worth. The moment you understand that difference, you begin to recover your power. The first thing you should do whenever you are rejected is pause before you react. Most people make the mistake of responding too quickly. They beg for another chance, ask too many questions, over-explain themselves, try to prove their value, or collapse into emotional panic. But when you react too quickly, you usually act from wounded pride rather than wisdom. Stoicism teaches that your first responsibility is to govern yourself. That means giving yourself enough space to feel the pain without letting the pain control your actions. When someone rejects you, whether it is in love, friendship, business, or any other area of life, do not rush to chase after what is moving away from you. Sit with the moment first. Breathe. Let the initial shock settle. Many people lose their dignity not because rejection happened, but because they responded to it without self-command. Another thing you must do is refuse to turn rejection into self-hatred. This is where many people make the wound deeper than it needs to be. They do not just say, "This did not work out." They say, "I am not good enough." They do not just say, "I was not chosen." They say, "Nobody will ever choose me." They take one moment and stretch it into a permanent conclusion. Stoicism teaches discipline of thought. It teaches you to be careful with the story you tell yourself after pain. A closed door may be real, but the meaning you assign to it can either destroy you or strengthen you. You have to learn to separate disappointment from identity. Not being chosen in one situation does not mean you are worthless in all situations. Not being loved by one person does not mean you are unlovable. Not getting one opportunity does not mean your future is finished. These are dangerous lies, and many people ruin their own confidence by believing them too early. You should also accept the reality of what happened instead of fighting it emotionally for too long. This is hard because the mind often wants to negotiate with pain. It says maybe this can still be fixed, maybe if I explain better, maybe if I wait, maybe if I change, maybe if I become more useful, more attractive, more impressive, then the rejection will disappear. But Stoicism teaches that peace begins where resistance to reality ends. Acceptance does not mean you like what happened. It means you stop wasting strength denying what is already true. If someone does not choose you, see it. If an opportunity closes, see it. If a door is shut, see it clearly. The more honestly you face reality, the faster you can begin healing. Many people suffer twice. First from the rejection itself, and then from the exhausting refusal to accept it. Another wise thing to do when rejected is protect your dignity. This matters more than people realize. Pain can tempt you to beg, cling, explain too much, plead for understanding, or try to win back someone or something that has already made its decision. But Stoicism teaches that your dignity must not be traded for temporary relief. Sometimes rejection hurts so much that people are willing to humiliate themselves just to feel hope again. They send repeated messages, keep checking in where they are not wanted, keep reopening conversations that are already over, or keep offering more of themselves to those who already said no. But chasing after rejection rarely creates respect. It usually creates further pain. Protect your dignity. Walk away with as much self-respect as possible. The pain may still be there, but you will recover more cleanly if you did not abandon yourself in the process. You should also stop trying to force a reason for every rejection. Sometimes there is a reason you can clearly see. Other times there is not. Sometimes people reject you because of timing, preference, fear, immaturity, incompatibility, limitations, or reasons that have little to do with your actual worth. But the human mind hates uncertainty, so it starts inventing painful answers. It says you were rejected because you are lacking, because you are too much or not enough, because someone else is better, because you were foolish to hope. Stoicism teaches humility before what you do not fully know. Not every rejection will come with a neat explanation. Not every ending will give you closure that feels satisfying. Part of maturity is learning to move forward even when you do not get every answer your emotions wanted. Another powerful response to rejection is to examine yourself honestly without becoming cruel to yourself. Stoicism is not about blind self-comfort. It is also about truth. Sometimes rejection can reveal something useful. Maybe you were careless. Maybe you were immature. Maybe you were unprepared. Maybe your approach was weak. Maybe your expectations were unrealistic. Maybe there really is something in you that needs growth. But self-examination should lead to improvement, not self-destruction. A mature person can ask, "Is there anything I can learn from this?" without collapsing into shame. That is a powerful question because it turns pain into instruction. Instead of only asking why this happened to me, ask what this can teach me. That question keeps rejection from becoming wasted suffering. You should also resist the urge to seek revenge through success, silence, or performance. Many people say they want to heal, but what they really want is to become impressive enough that the person who rejected them feels regret. They want to glow up, win bigger, become richer, look better, or appear colder just so the rejection can be reversed emotionally. But Stoicism teaches that your life should not become a performance for those who did not choose you. Growth is good, but when your improvement is fueled only by wounded ego, it often leaves you restless. Build yourself because your life deserves growth, not because you are trying to make someone feel guilty for missing out. Real healing begins when your future is no longer being designed as a response to someone else's decision. Another important thing to do is let yourself grieve without letting grief become your identity. Rejection hurts. It is okay to admit that. It is okay to feel disappointed, sad, embarrassed, confused, or even angry for a while. Stoicism does not teach emotional denial. It teaches emotional discipline. There is a difference. You do not need to pretend rejection means nothing when it clearly affected you. But you also do not need to build a home inside the pain. Feel it, but do not worship it. Let yourself cry if you need to. Let yourself be quiet for a while. Let yourself process. But keep remembering that grief is a season, not a permanent name. What wounded you today does not have to define you tomorrow. You should also be careful about what rejection makes you believe about people. Many people get hurt once and then close their whole heart. They become bitter, suspicious, guarded, and emotionally hard in ways that hurt them long after the original rejection is gone. Stoicism teaches balance. One rejection should not become proof that everyone is the same, that nobody can be trusted, or that hope is foolish. That kind of thinking protects you from vulnerability, but it also blocks real connection. Wisdom after rejection is not becoming closed. It is becoming discerning. You do not need to become colder. You need to become clearer. There is a big difference. Another wise response is to return to your own life quickly. Rejection becomes more dangerous when it turns into obsession. When your whole mind stays trapped in what happened, you start neglecting your routines, your purpose, your goals, your work, your health, and your peace. Stoicism teaches that life must continue. One painful event should not be allowed to consume your entire identity. Go back to your discipline. Go back to your responsibilities. Go back to your body, your mind, your growth, your values. This is not avoidance. It is recovery through order. Many people heal faster not because the rejection mattered less, but because they refuse to let it become the center of everything. You should also understand that rejection can be protection, even when it does not feel like it. This is one of the hardest truths to accept in the moment. Sometimes what you wanted was not truly right for you. Sometimes the person you were fighting for would have brought confusion, instability, or future pain. Sometimes the opportunity you lost would have led you into a place that looked good from the outside but would have weakened you inside. Stoicism teaches trust in reality, even when it arrives painfully. This does not mean every rejection is a hidden blessing in some simple, easy way. But it does mean that not getting what you wanted is not always a tragedy. Sometimes it is redirection. Sometimes it is rescue. Sometimes it is life refusing to give you what your emotions asked for because your future required something different. Another thing you must do is stop measuring your worth by being chosen. This is one of the deepest lessons rejection can teach. Many people build their confidence on external acceptance. They feel valuable when they are wanted, praised, desired, included, or selected. But the moment they are rejected, their whole self-image collapses. Stoicism teaches that your worth has to stand on something deeper than popularity or preference. People choose and reject for countless reasons, many of which have more to do with them than with you. If your identity is built only on outside approval, rejection will keep breaking you. But when your worth is rooted in character, discipline, and truth, rejection can hurt without destroying you. You should also avoid making permanent promises in moments of pain. After rejection, people often say things like, "I will never love again, I will never trust anyone again, I will never put myself out there again," or, "I am done trying." These statements feel powerful in the moment because they create the illusion of control. But they are usually made from hurt, not wisdom. Stoicism teaches patience with your own emotions. Do not let one painful moment decide the shape of your entire future. Let the wound settle before you make big conclusions. A wise person gives themselves time before turning pain into philosophy. Another strong response to rejection is gratitude for clarity. This may sound difficult, especially when the wound is fresh, but clarity is a gift even when it hurts. It is better to know where you stand than to live in confusion. It is better to be rejected clearly than to be kept in false hope for months or years. It is better to know the truth than to build your life on illusion. Stoicism values truth because truth, even painful truth, is more useful than comforting lies. Once reality becomes clear, your healing can become honest. And perhaps one of the most important things you should do whenever you are rejected is keep your heart clean. Do not let rejection turn you into someone bitter, manipulative, cruel, desperate, or prideful. Do not let one closed door make you lose your softness, your integrity, or your standards. Protect your heart, yes, but do not poison it. Stoicism teaches strength with character. It teaches that pain is not an excuse to become ugly inside. Let rejection refine you, not deform you. The truth is, rejection is part of life for everyone. Even strong people face it. Even beautiful people face it. Even talented people face it. Even wise people face it. The question is not whether rejection will happen. The question is what you will become when it does. Will it make you smaller, more desperate, and more afraid? Or will it make you clearer, deeper, stronger, and more grounded in who you are? That choice matters. Because sometimes the most important thing rejection gives you is not pain. It is perspective. So whenever you are rejected, do not chase, do not collapse, and do not let the moment define your future. Pause. Accept. Learn. Protect your dignity. Return to your life. Strengthen your character. And remember that being rejected does not mean you are less valuable. It may simply mean that this was not yours to keep, and your peace is worth more than forcing what was never truly aligned. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel for more powerful and realistic Stoic lessons on self-respect, inner peace, discipline, emotional strength, and becoming wiser through life's hardest moments. This channel is for people who want real growth, not empty motivation. Another thing you should do whenever you are rejected is guard yourself from the temptation to compare. Rejection already hurts on its own, but comparison makes it heavier. The mind starts asking who was chosen instead of you, what they had that you did not, what made them more desirable, more qualified, more loved, or more acceptable. This is one of the quickest ways to damage your peace because comparison turns pain into humiliation. Stoicism teaches you to return to your own path. Someone else being chosen does not automatically mean you were inferior. Life is not always a neat ranking system. Sometimes it is preference. Sometimes it is timing. Sometimes it is fit. Sometimes it is simply a direction that was never meant for you. The more you compare, the more you abandon yourself in a moment when you most need your own loyalty. A wiser response is to say, "What is mine will require my growth, not my envy." You should also be very careful not to let rejection push you into proving mode. This happens when a person becomes obsessed with showing everyone what they lost. They want to come back better looking, more successful, more admired, more untouchable, or more impressive just so they can reverse the emotional pain. But there is a hidden trap in this. Your life starts revolving around a wound instead of a purpose. Stoicism teaches that your energy should serve what is meaningful, not what bruised your ego. There is nothing wrong with improving yourself after rejection. In fact, growth is one of the healthiest responses. But the spirit behind it matters. Are you building because your life deserves more discipline, or are you performing because your pride wants revenge? One path creates peace. The other keeps you chained to the very thing you claim you are trying to move beyond. Another wise point is this: whenever you are rejected, do not keep reopening the wound through constant contact. Many people slow down their own healing because they cannot leave the rejection alone. They keep checking the person's page, replaying conversations, rereading messages, watching for signs, or inventing reasons to reach out again. The pain remains fresh because they keep touching it. Stoicism teaches restraint. Not every desire to check, speak, or revisit should be obeyed. Sometimes healing requires distance more than explanation. Distance is not weakness. It is medicine. If something or someone has made it clear that you are no longer chosen in that space, stepping back is often the most dignified and intelligent thing you can do. It allows your mind to breathe. It gives your emotions room to settle. It stops your peace from depending on little updates that only reopen the same cut. You should also learn how to separate rejection from humiliation. These two things are not the same, even though they often arrive together in the mind. Rejection means something did not continue, did not open, or did not choose you. Humiliation is the story your ego adds on top of it. It says, "Now everyone sees I was not enough." It says, "This proves I misread everything." It says, "I look foolish for hoping." Stoicism teaches you not to add unnecessary suffering to an already painful event. You do not need to turn disappointment into a public trial against your worth. Many people have been rejected and still remain dignified. Many have heard no and still remained whole. The rejection may be real, but the shame does not have to be permanent. You can feel let down without deciding you have been reduced. Another important thing to do is let rejection teach you where you were too attached. Sometimes rejection hurts with unusual intensity because your soul had placed too much weight on one outcome. You were not just hoping for it. You were depending on it to confirm your worth, secure your future, heal your loneliness, or give meaning to your life. Stoicism teaches detachment, not because desire is wrong, but because unhealthy attachment makes pain more destructive than it needs to be. When one person, one opportunity, or one outcome becomes the container for too much of your identity, rejection feels like your whole life is collapsing. A wise response is to ask, "What did I expect this to give me that I should have been building within myself?" That question is uncomfortable, but it is deeply liberating. It helps you heal the deeper dependence beneath the visible disappointment. You should also stop romanticizing the thing that rejected you. This happens often after loss. Once something is no longer available, the mind starts polishing it. It remembers only the beauty, the hope, the fantasy, the potential, and the ideal version of what could have been. It forgets the confusion, the inconsistency, the warning signs, the mismatch, or the instability. Stoicism teaches sobriety of mind. It asks you to see clearly, not sentimentally. If a person rejected you, do not instantly turn them into your one perfect chance at happiness. If an opportunity closed, do not assume it was the only road to significance. The mind often exaggerates what it can no longer touch. Your task is to return to truth. Not everything that leaves was sacred. Not everything that ends was meant to remain. Another strong point is that rejection should make you more honest, not more artificial. Some people respond to rejection by creating a new false self. They become overly polished, overly guarded, overly performative, or overly calculated because they are trying to avoid ever feeling that pain again. They stop showing sincerity. They stop risking honesty. They become more interested in being accepted than being real. But Stoicism teaches authenticity grounded in discipline. The answer to rejection is not becoming fake enough to avoid it. The answer is becoming strong enough to survive it without losing your truth. You do not need to become a performance to be chosen. You need to become more rooted, more discerning, and less dependent on every outcome. You should also understand that not every rejection requires self-correction. This is very important because some people assume every closed door is proof that they need to change something fundamental about themselves. But sometimes rejection is not an indictment. Sometimes it is simply incompatibility. A calm, kind, disciplined person can still be rejected. A talented, worthy, sincere person can still be overlooked. Stoicism teaches you to evaluate reality without vanity and without unnecessary self-condemnation. Ask whether there is a lesson, yes. But do not automatically assume you are the problem just because something did not work. Sometimes the answer is not become someone else. Sometimes the answer is keep becoming yourself, just in a better environment, with better alignment, and with more patience. Another thing you should do is rebuild your relationship with uncertainty. Rejection often shakes people because it makes them feel exposed to how little control they actually have. You can do your best, present your heart, offer your effort, and still not be chosen. That reality frightens many people because they want effort to guarantee outcome. Stoicism teaches otherwise. It teaches that your control is over your conduct, not over every result. That truth can either depress you or free you. It frees you when you realize that your dignity does not depend on controlling the final answer. You can be brave without guaranteeing success. You can be sincere without guaranteeing reciprocity. You can show up fully and still accept whatever reality gives back. That is emotional adulthood. You should also avoid punishing future people for past rejection. This is one of the quiet ways pain spreads. A person gets hurt once, and then everyone who comes later has to deal with the walls built from that old wound. Stoicism teaches responsibility for your inner state. The fact that you were rejected does not give you the right to become closed, deceptive, suspicious, or emotionally unavailable with people who did not cause the pain. Healing means learning from the past without forcing the future to carry its weight. This does not mean you become naive again. It means your wisdom becomes cleaner. You become more discerning, not more damaged in the way you love, trust, or try. Another wise response is to keep your standards instead of lowering them out of fear. Rejection can tempt people to accept anything afterward, just to avoid feeling unwanted again. They settle for less respect, less clarity, less kindness, less alignment, and less truth because they are now more afraid of losing than of choosing poorly. But Stoicism teaches that pain should refine your judgment, not weaken it. Do not let one no make you so hungry for acceptance that you start saying yes to what dishonors you. The fear of rejection has pushed many people into relationships, jobs, friendships, and environments that were far below what their spirit needed. Your standards should not disappear just because your emotions are bruised. You should also learn how to keep moving before you feel fully ready. Many people wait to heal perfectly before they return to life. They think they need complete emotional clarity before they can work, create, love, trust, try again, or feel joy again. But Stoicism teaches that action often helps restore order. You may still feel the bruise and yet continue living wisely. You may still feel disappointed and yet return to discipline. You may still miss what you wanted and yet take the next honest step. Healing is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like doing ordinary things with a heavy heart until the heart gradually grows lighter. That is still healing. That is still strength. Another point worth adding is this: rejection can reveal whether you loved reality or fantasy. Sometimes what hurts most is not the actual loss, but the collapse of the imagined future attached to it. You were not only attached to the person, job, or opportunity. You were attached to the story you had already written in your head. Stoicism teaches you to hold your plans lightly. It allows hope, but it warns against emotional possession of what has not yet fully become real. A wiser person learns to notice when they are grieving a real bond and when they are grieving a fantasy that never truly existed outside their imagination. That distinction matters because it changes how you recover. You stop mourning what was never truly solid. You should also let rejection deepen your compassion for others. Pain has a way of making you more understanding if you let it. Once you know what it feels like to be overlooked, not chosen, misunderstood, or let go, you gain a chance to become gentler with the wounds of other people. Stoicism does not turn pain into self-pity. It turns pain into character when handled well. Rejection can make you humbler, less arrogant, less entitled, and more aware that everyone carries invisible disappointments. That does not erase your hurt, but it can keep your pain from becoming self-centered. It can make you wiser in how you speak, how you choose, and how you treat others when they are vulnerable. And finally, whenever you are rejected, remember this: your task is not to immediately make the pain disappear. Your task is to carry yourself well while it is still there. That is what Stoicism keeps trying to teach. Strength is not the absence of hurt. Strength is dignity inside hurt. It is order inside disappointment. It is truth inside confusion. It is the refusal to betray yourself because something painful happened. Rejection does not make you smaller unless you decide to shrink around it. It does not make you worthless unless you hand it that authority. Let it hurt, let it teach, and then let it pass through you without becoming the final story of your life. Another thing you should do whenever you are rejected is protect your mind from replaying the moment again and again. Many people suffer far longer than necessary because they keep reliving the exact words, the exact silence, the exact expression, or the exact moment they realize things were over. The body leaves the moment, but the mind keeps returning to it as if repetition will somehow change the outcome. It will not. It only deepens the wound. Stoicism teaches you that pain is often unavoidable, but mental torture is often self-created. You have to notice when reflection has stopped being useful and has become punishment. There is a difference between learning from what happened and turning your mind into a prison where the same scene keeps playing every night. Once the lesson has been seen, let the moment stop renting space in your head for free. You should also resist the urge to chase closure from people who are unwilling or unable to give it honestly. This is one of the hardest lessons because rejection often leaves unanswered questions, and the human heart hates unfinished things. It wants a final explanation, a clearer reason, a better conversation, one more honest moment that will suddenly make everything easier to accept. But many times, the person who rejected you does not have the depth, courage, or honesty to offer that kind of closure. Sometimes they do not fully understand themselves. Sometimes they want to avoid discomfort. Sometimes they simply do not care enough to explain properly. Stoicism teaches that your peace cannot depend on another person's emotional maturity. At some point, you must create closure through acceptance, not through endless pursuit of answers that may never come. Another wise point is that rejection should teach you to respect what is mutual. A lot of suffering comes from being emotionally invested in things that are one-sided. One-sided affection. One-sided effort. One-sided loyalty. One-sided curiosity. One-sided commitment. Stoicism brings you back to reality. It asks you to stop pouring your whole spirit into places where reciprocity is missing. There is nothing noble about endlessly chasing what gives little back. There is nothing honorable about making yourself small just to keep a connection alive on your own. A wise person begins to value what is returned, what is clear, and what is willingly given. Rejection, painful as it is, can train your heart to stop confusing longing with mutuality. You should also be careful not to let rejection make you suspicious of your own value. That is one of the deepest injuries rejection can cause. After enough disappointment, people begin to question whether there is something fundamentally wrong with them. They stop trusting their own beauty, ability, sincerity, intelligence, or worth. They carry themselves differently because their inner image has been damaged. But Stoicism reminds you that outside outcomes are unstable judges. You cannot hand your self-image over to every passing opinion, preference, or decision. People reject for reasons that are often partial, emotional, limited, or deeply personal. Their choice may reflect what they wanted, feared, preferred, or understood in that moment. It is dangerous to let one outcome become a total verdict on who you are. You must learn to hold your value with steadier hands than that. Another important thing to do is stop asking rejection to tell you the whole truth about your future. A closed door can feel final when it is fresh. It can make you think this is how things will always go. You begin speaking in absolutes. This always happens to me. I will never be chosen. Nothing works out for me. I am tired of trying. But Stoicism teaches that the present moment is not qualified to predict your whole life. This rejection is real, yes. This disappointment is real, yes. But it is not the full story. The future remains unwritten. Many people speak permanent defeat over themselves because of one season, one person, one missed opportunity, one painful ending. That is too much authority to give a temporary event. Let rejection speak about the moment, not the entire map of your life. You should also notice whether rejection is exposing your need to be understood by everyone. This is subtle, but powerful. Sometimes what hurts is not only that you were not chosen, but that you were not fully seen the way you wanted to be seen. You wanted someone to understand your heart, your intentions, your value, your effort, your love. And when they did not, it felt deeply unfair. Stoicism teaches that one of the hardest freedoms is accepting that not everyone will understand you correctly. Some people will misread your silence. Others will miss your depth. Others will reject things in you that someone wiser would have treasured. That is painful, but it is part of life. Maturity means learning not to collapse every time you are misunderstood. Your value is not destroyed by someone else's limited sight. Another powerful response is to return your focus to what rejection cannot take from you. It can take an outcome. It can take a role, a relationship, a possibility, a hope, or an invitation. But it cannot automatically take your discipline, your character, your faithfulness to yourself, your mind, your values, or your ability to begin again. Stoicism teaches that your deepest stability must be built on what remains in your control. This is what saves people from falling apart completely. When you remember that your self-command still belongs to you, your dignity still belongs to you, your next step still belongs to you, something shifts. You stop feeling completely helpless. You realize that while something was lost, not everything was lost. And that is often the beginning of recovery. You should also learn how to let rejection humble you without letting it break you. Humility is one of the hidden gifts of disappointment when it is handled wisely. Rejection can strip away illusions, entitlement, fantasy, and the belief that life must always go your way. It can make you more grounded, more compassionate, more realistic, and less arrogant. But if you are not careful, the same event can also make you insecure, defeated, and emotionally closed. Stoicism teaches the narrow path between those two extremes. Let rejection soften your ego, but do not let it shatter your spirit. Let it teach you that you are not entitled to every yes, but do not let it teach you that you are doomed to every no. There is a difference between being humbled and being crushed. Wisdom keeps that difference alive. Another strong point is this: after rejection, do not rush to replace what was lost just to numb the emptiness. This is a common mistake. A person feels unwanted, so they hurry into another relationship, another attachment, another distraction, another source of validation just to avoid feeling the wound. But a quick replacement often delays real healing. Stoicism teaches you to sit with emptiness long enough to understand it. Not forever, but long enough. If you immediately fill every silence with another person, another obsession, another thrill, you may never learn what the pain was trying to show you. Sometimes the loneliness after rejection is not there to destroy you. Sometimes it is there to reveal how much of yourself you had outsourced to something outside you. That realization can become the foundation of a stronger life. You should also be willing to admit when your pain is coming more from ego than from love. This is difficult, because wounded ego often disguises itself as heartbreak. But sometimes what hurts most is not the loss itself. It is the fact that your pride was bruised, your image was shaken, your hope was embarrassed, or your sense of specialness was challenged. Stoicism asks for brutal honesty here. Was this truly grief over something meaningful, or is a large part of the pain coming from the fact that you were not chosen the way you expected? There is no shame in admitting ego is involved. In fact, that honesty gives you power. Once you can separate bruised pride from real love, your healing becomes cleaner. You stop worshipping pain that was never as pure as it first appeared. Another wise thing to do is keep your routines even when your feelings are unstable. Rejection can throw your inner world into disorder. Sleep becomes harder. Focus becomes weaker. Motivation drops. Small tasks begin to feel heavy. That is exactly why routine matters. Stoicism teaches that order can steady the soul when emotion becomes unpredictable. Get up. Washington work. Move your body. Read. Pray, reflect, or sit quietly. Do the simple things that remind you that life is still moving and that you are still a person with responsibilities and possibilities beyond this wound. You do not need to feel strong before you behave with discipline. Often the discipline is what slowly helps the strength return. You should also stop secretly hoping that rejection will reverse if you suffer enough. Many people do this without admitting it. They stay in pain as if their pain proves the value of what they lost. They almost fear healing, because healing feels like letting go, and letting go feels like losing the last connection to that person or opportunity. But Stoicism teaches that clinging to pain does not honor what happened. It only prolongs your captivity. Your suffering is not a currency that buys reversal. Your heartbreak is not a message the universe owes a reward for. At some point, healing requires the courage to stop treating your pain like loyalty. You can value what mattered and still release the wound. Those two things are not enemies. Another point worth adding is that rejection can purify your standards if you let it. Some people come out of rejection more desperate. Others come out wiser. They begin to notice what they ignored before. They become more aware of mixed signals, poor treatment, false promises, shallow interest, emotional unavailability, and the many ways they once settled for little because they hoped it would grow into more. Stoicism teaches learning through reality. Rejection can sharpen your discernment. It can make you less easily impressed and more deeply attentive to truth. This is one of the ways pain becomes useful. It trains your heart to value clarity over charm and substance over fantasy. You should also remember that some rejection is simply redirection toward a different version of yourself. Not just a different person or opportunity, but a different you. Sometimes what falls away was connected to a version of you that needed to end. The version that begged. The version that overtaxed. The version that chased. The version that ignored signs. The version that depended too heavily on being chosen. Stoicism often works this way. It uses difficulty to refine character. So the question after rejection is not only what did I lose, but also what part of me is being asked to grow beyond this. That question turns pain into transformation. It moves you out of victimhood and into responsibility. Another wise response is learning to hold both pain and gratitude at the same time. This is a mature emotional skill. You can be hurt and still grateful for what was revealed. You can be disappointed and still grateful that the truth came before deeper entanglement. You can feel the loss and still appreciate the lesson. Stoicism does not force false positivity. It does not ask you to smile at every wound. But it does teach you to look for what can still be gained inside what was lost. That posture protects the soul from becoming bitter. Gratitude, even in pain, keeps the heart from hardening in ways that later cost you more. You should also take rejection as a reminder that nothing outside you should become your only source of identity. This may be one of the deepest Stoic lessons of all. The more your identity is built entirely around being loved by this person, accepted by this group, chosen for this role, or validated by this outcome, the more fragile you become. Rejection exposes fragile foundations. That exposure hurts, but it is also useful. It shows you where your life has become too dependent on something unstable. And once you see that, you can rebuild. Not around false invincibility, but around deeper roots. Character, faithfulness, purpose, discipline, peace. These things are not untouched by rejection, but they are not destroyed by it either. And finally, whenever you are rejected, remember that your response matters more than your embarrassment. A lot of people make poor decisions because they are trying to escape the uncomfortable feeling of being unwanted. They speak too fast, chase too hard, settle too low, or shut down too completely because they cannot bear the sting to their pride. Stoicism reminds you that discomfort is not an emergency. You can survive the awkwardness. You can survive the sadness. You can survive the silence after something ends. You do not have to do something dramatic just to stop feeling exposed. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is nothing reckless at all. Just endure the feeling, keep your dignity, and let time do the work your panic wanted to interrupt.